Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Gotta say okay to that. Um, and the first thing we do is light the God candle. And the little clicker's here someplace. I just had it. There it is. We light this candle as a symbol of the one power and presence. It's called by many names, and the name you choose to use is welcome. Yep, you can see it. So this is a little centering time. Just settle back and relax. Close your eyes if you like. And just imagine an old sturdy chest sitting in front of you, the kind built to last, with a hefty latch on its lock. Reach out, lift the latch, and slowly open the lid. Inside, you see that the chest is completely empty. Now picture all your worries, desires, and frustrations, everything that weighs on your mind or pulls at your attention. And one by one, place them gently into the chest. Take a moment to be sure you've left nothing behind. And then when you're ready, close the lid and turn away, leaving the chest behind you. And in front of you stretches a breathtaking view, a vast sea from the ridge of a high cliff. Feel that fresh air, hear the sound of the waves, and take in the peace of the open ocean. Now open your eyes when you're ready. You are calm, present, and free. So we share, well, typically, I'm telling you, Jennifer, just so you can know our routine little, we have developed values and beliefs as a community, and we alternate at our services which one we display, and it will be all be silenced except me, and you can read along if you like. So this week we have our values. Our values. We show up and act with gentle honesty and authenticity, vulnerability, caring, and trust, open and welcoming hearts, attentive listening to and respect for one another, an intention to connect with the divine, a dedication to community, a commitment to grow through spiritual practice and service. And then similarly, we keep, because of the nature of Zoom and the way nothing's in sync, we keep people silenced while we have our songs, and we have our opening song now. The words will be on the screen, and feel free to just sing along. I think that when I first heard that, it really kind of resonated with me, the not putting God up on a pedestal, but a very interesting way to see it. And it was interesting because I know Arlene always brings to our attention the feminine need for the expression of the feminine aspect of God or the face. And so at times in this song, I said her instead of his, and it made a different experience. It was very interesting. Yeah. So play with that. So I have the great pleasure of introducing Reverend Marty Geltz. And I'm going to ask you to unmute now so you'll be ready when I turn it over to you for the meditation, and which is right after I introduce you. Okay, Marty? So go ahead and unmute. Um, and Reverend Marty Geltz has been one of our ministers during the period that we had part-time ministers. And she actually also was a consultant with our church when we were kind of figuring out our path and decided, I remember she asked, or someone asked a question, it might not have been her, but it seemed relevant in the discussion. Do you want a leader that walks in front of you or walks alongside of you. And we chose a guiding minister that would walk alongside of us rather than out front. And since then, we have evolved into being community led, and we delight in having reverends and special speakers at times, and sometimes have discussions led by members of the church. So today we have the pleasure of having Reverend Marty Geltz with us. So welcome, Marty. And she is going to, I think, first have a meditation and then her talk. So you want to unmute. Can you unmute yourself, Marty?
Not a technocrat. Excuse me. So good morning and welcome.
Morning.
I love the opening piece that you did about opening the chest and getting ready. So let's go ahead and go deeper. Just close your eyes. Notice how you're sitting, relax, make sure you're comfortable, and turn your attention to your breath. Slowly in, fully in, and slowly, fully out. Slowly in, fully in, and slowly and fully out. Feel your body letting go even further. God. What does that mean to you when we say God? Allow yourself to focus on this word, this title, this mystical event. However you see, whatever you see. Notice the first thing that came. God. Do you see a name? Do you hear a word? Does it feel like a title? Or is it a mystical concept? An idea? An image? Does God show up for you as a person? Does this person have a gender? Does this being have a job? A job in your life? A role in your life? A mother or father figure? A judge? A teacher? A friend? A king? A lawgiver? God. Does your response show up as perhaps a system in which your view and values of the universe and of your own being, your beliefs, are organized? God. What does it evoke in you? Is it more of a feeling? than a person or an image? Does it feel like fear or judgment, love, hope, good, beauty, truth? Is there an image of power? Is there a sense of the cosmic universality, a feeling of awe? Do you use this word with comfort in your own spiritual path? How do you use it? Why do you use it? Does it perhaps evoke that which is, or what can be, or what should be? God. And if you feel comfortable, just say the word out loud now. God. And just hold on to your response in your heart, in your mind, in your soul, in your body, wherever you feel it, if you feel it. God. As you're ready, stay with the word. Open your eyes and come fully present here in your spirit community. I always sit and listen for my topic when I'm invited to speak. This little topic came in, the word God, not such a small topic. So I've really sat with this and decided to go to a very slender slice of that pie and talk about using the word God, especially in New Thought, because one of the things that I have noticed over the years, maybe in the last 10 years, is in some cases a reticence, especially in New Thought, to use God, the word God, because those of us who maybe came out of a more traditional backstory, it has a lot of stuff attached to it. It has feelings, it has experiences, it has whatever else is on your list, judgment, fear, joy, love, all of it, the whole package. It's big, right? I can I can remember my daughter. I sent my daughter, although I'm not Catholic, I sent my daughter to a Jesuit high school for lots of reasons. One is, of course, that the Jesuits honor honor education. I thought they did a good job. And I got a call one day. You didn't have to be Catholic to go there. I got a call one day from the dean of the school, and she says, "Well, you know, Mrs. Gelt, I need to ask you and tell you something that happened today in class." And I said, "Oh no, what happened? Is my daughter okay?" "Oh yeah, well, we're concerned." I said, "Oh, what's wrong?" I mean, it was like, urgent feeling. And she says, "Well, your daughter in class today raised her hand and asked a question that really stopped everybody in their tracks." And I said, "What was that?" And she said, "Well, your daughter wanted to know why we keep calling God him." And I thought, oh, interesting. She got it, at least in my opinion. So, one of the things I want to talk about is this contrast between a new thought concept or name, God, and the traditional piece. And in fact, I want to invite you to consider a step. For me, it was a step. I really have always been a child of nature and loving nature, being out in nature, working in nature, taking troubled teens out in nature. Why? Because nature is, in my experience, the finest teacher. So, because nature appeals to me as the embodiment of God, one of the pieces of the embodiment of the word God, it also makes me realize that there's this meeting place, this confluence where the two rivers meet: science or nature and religion. Science and religion. Do they meet? How do they meet? And what comes out of that meeting? I can honestly say that one of my favorite authors, Voltaire, is known to have said, if God didn't exist, it would have been necessary to invent him. Which I thought, my daughter might ask, why is it a hymn? And I ask, why is it a hymn? And I think that when we anthropomorphize God, in other words, we give God human traits, like we give God a gender, we give God a body, we give God certain jobs, as, for example, the lawgiver or the judge or the one who rewards or punishes, or all the things that are in that box that we have created and put in our little box called God. The thing about nature is that there is an order. And Einstein, one of my favorite scientists, because he has a great sense of humor, and he really feels that imagination is more valuable than intelligence. Curiosity is more valuable than intelligence. And he has, well, of course, in his lifetime, he did interviews where he was always asked, well, Dr. Einstein, do you believe in God? And people are curious because I think that we have done a really good job of separating science from God, and we see them as separate. And so my invitation to you today is about bringing those together as one unified event, if you will. I'm going to call it an event because it's a verb for me. It's not a thing. It's more of a action. I can I remember when people asked Einstein what his response was, and he had this great quote, and he said, um, religion without science is blind. What was he talking about? He was talking about, in my opinion, his awe for the way nature encompasses all that is. I would in fact insert the word the universe. The universe is God. And Einstein further said he really liked, when it came to God, he really liked the God of Spinoza. And if you don't know who Spinoza was, he was a 17th century philosopher. He was a nice Jewish boy. He was born in the Iberian Peninsula, so Spain, Portugal. And his family was forced to convert to Catholicism. And they later were sort of run off and sought sanctuary in Amsterdam, where it was a more open society. And as a person who knew a lot about Judaism and a lot about Christianity, he was probably one of my favorite philosophers of the 17th century, 1600s, because he was one of the first to combine body and spirit as one. The act of putting one, having one, the act of calling in unity and noticing the way unity shows up for us. And one of the things that he believed that Einstein embraced and that I happen to embrace is that nature is God. The universe is God. Science is God. What if pantheism is going to come back around? You know, the pagan religions were all about pantheism, where nature was invoked as God. And if you look up the history of the word God, as a linguist, I always go there first. What's the definition? What's the source of that word, God? And there's lots of stuff that we could talk about, what languages it came from, but basically German, English, and Dutch. But the word God came from a word seeped in those religions, in those languages. And it has, over the centuries, and I mean centuries, even before Christianity, had a meaning. And that meaning in the traditional religious sense was more of a role, or the lawgiver. If we have laws, do we need a lawgiver? And I have found as a truth for myself, and I invite you to consider. I'm not selling anything. I'm asking you to consider, how would your relationship to the word God change, or would it change, if God were the universe? If God were nature? If God were all that is? I think one of the things that comforts me in dealing with my relationship to God has always been to pay attention to the way nature knows everything. Nature is the teacher. Nature knows how to do it. Nature knows how to survive. Nature knows how to evolve. Nature knows how to leap, make a quantum leap, and an evolutionary action, to grow, and to be that sense of unity, that sense of the all that is, that sense of understanding and having a relationship with the laws of the universe. And it does, for many of us, carry with it this dualism between the laws of religion and the laws of nature. And that's where I want to focus, because I can remember as a little girl going to the library. I was very, very young. And my mom would always take us to the library, and we would go every 2 weeks, and we'd pull out books, at that time, picture books, to read. But more importantly, what I remember is standing in a library and as a little person looking up at books and books and books that looked like they went all the way to the ceiling, and having this vague sense that there was probably some order to the way the books were on the shelf, that there was some organizing piece for the books on the shelf, that lots of people wrote these books. I don't know who, but they were contributed from lots of places and lots of pieces of the bigger puzzle, each book. Lots of pieces of the bigger puzzle. And I remember having this vague, perhaps dim sense of the fact that there was order, that it wasn't a chaotic, pile of books, that there was a sense of order about the books, about the pieces of knowledge, about the pieces of experience, about the pieces of ideas, about the way things work. And as a person who's always wanted to know how things work, I felt very much comforted by standing in that library and looking up 6 or 8 feet to the top and feeling like it just went on forever, all these books. And that sense of there must be an organizing concept or law, this organized approach to all these pieces. And I took that with me when I went out into nature, and it feels the same. It feels the same. There's some kind of list of organizing laws in play in nature. It's true, we don't know what all of them are yet, and we may never know. But what if this organizing unity of the universe and how everything works, how everything has a role, how everything has laws governing it, how behavior is not 100% free will. Scary idea. But at the same time, could it be freeing? Could it be asking you, what else? What else are you? What else surrounds you? What else holds you in this organized order of unity with everything, the entire universe in play? What if that's God? What if that's God? And I love when Einstein answered that question. He said, I like Spinoza's God. Well, Spinoza's God was, God is the universe. God is nature. Very eye-opening, very heart-opening, and in some ways a relief for me in New Thought because I have noticed, as I said, this hesitation in New Thought to use the word God. Uh, and this the pieces that hold us back from opening to this possibility are things like insisting that God is the lawgiver and the law judge. And in New Thought, what if we find our way to letting go of some of these older ways of looking at God, experiencing God? Because we are nature. We are the universe. Each of us, we're all made of the same thing. We're all made of star stuff, right? We're all part of the universe. So the question that we used to battle with in seminary is, when we choose a spiritual path, are we living for God? Or are we living as God? And I propose and invite you to consider that as integral parts of the universe and the great unity that is the universe, that we are living as God, that we are God, we are part of God. Many people who look at religions considered polytheistic, lots of gods. People consider, for example, Hinduism is a polytheistic religion, when in fact it's not. And I'll tell you why. These are all these different gods and goddesses in Hinduism are just a different face of God. And what if that's what we are? It's like this giant disco ball remember those with all the little mirrors, 1,000 mirrors pasted on the outside of this ball that's rotating. And as they pass the light, they light up. That little tile of mirror lights up. It's like all the different faces of what exists in the universe is a disco ball. So Hinduism really is a monotheistic, in my book, a monotheistic tradition. But it goes further in expressing all the different faces of that God. So if you decide, or if you choose to think about what it would mean to open your experience of God, or your definition of God, or your image of God, to the possibility that God is nature, that God is the universe, that you are God, you are one face of God, what would that look like? So what I did was think about the differences, at least for me, the way I see them. And please allow yourself to see what's true for you, of course. But what it would mean if God is nature, or God is the universe, is that God is in absolutely everything. Now, this is in contrast to a God of traditional religion, which is often described as being transcendent and independent of us. We reach out to God. We pray to God as though God were separate. So that's something that's huge. That's like accepting unity in its largest definition and recognizing, what if nature is God, the universe is God? That means I'm God. And that means that God is not separate. from me. God is not transcendent from me. That's a big step, and I realize that. It would also mean that our relationship to the universe would change drastically, in my opinion. Uh, do you see it that way? I mean, that if we say that God is the universe, then the universe equals sign God. This is different than traditional approach, which is the universe was created by God. I don't know. It looks different to me. What do you think? Huge difference. It separates the God from the universe because it was something, it's not God traditionally, it's what God created. I see that as different, and perhaps you do and perhaps you don't. But I see that as like the second place where, it sort of parts ways from the traditional interpretation of God. So that's two ways. I think I came up with four or even five. The third one I came up with was our personhood. So if God is the universe, if God is nature, is it personal? Because in traditional religious doctrine, we have God is a personal and intentional figure. Very personal. Spinoza's God, on the other hand, says, well, God is the universe, and that means that God is, and I love this one, God is not personal. God is not concerned with who we love, what we wear, how we perform, whether we're moral. Yeah, whether we're obeying the laws of the universe. By the way, there's really no choice to obeying the laws of the universe. They just are, right? Like God is. So we move from a personal God who's worried about whether our head's covered or whether we're wearing a tent or whether we're, who we love. All those things. The everyday, the mundane, the decisions we make every day, the way we hold our values, the way we act on our values, the way we hold and act on our beliefs, and recognizing that a belief is a tough one. A belief is not the same thing as a fact or a law of nature. That's a scary one for some of us, right? Doesn't mean we don't have beliefs, but it means we are aware that a belief is not the same thing as a fact. And we see this particular conundrum playing out in our world today in many places. The fourth one I noticed as different, once we say God is the universe, is about our providence, that there's the laws of the universe don't intervene in our lives. They just run our lives from the scientific end of the spectrum, right? These are the laws, this is how it works, and you learn to be within those laws. Whereas in traditional religion, we see that the active intervention of God is possible. I leave you with that one. I don't have any more comments about that one, but I think that that's a really important place to think about. It just because one of the things that happens is when we go in this direction, we suddenly become aware that the kinds of things that disappear are God's rewards or God's punishment, right? That there's this understanding of the natural laws, but harmonizing and living in spirit with this understanding means that you're harmonizing not with a judge, but with a universe. That's a big one in my book. The fifth one that I came up with is about freedom and enlightenment. And because, there's this, when we have knowledge of God as the universe or as nature, our approach, our free approach to life becomes through reason and understanding. And contrast that to traditional religion, which I see as that our personal freedom and enlightenment is related to revelation. This doesn't mean that we don't think that the nature of the universe is not revealed to us, but it's not a doctrine. It's not written down. It's not taught or enforced by a religious structure. So we have more freedom, I think, in this place to learn through understanding. So it's a little bit like understand, like when I said as a little girl standing in the library and just sensing dimly that there was some order involved. How would that change your life in the world today? There is some order involved. In fact, all is order. And when it becomes disorder, that means there's going to be a higher order coming. This is called a quantum leap. So when nature becomes disordered, the choice is to evolve or die. So that's what we call the quantum leap. We evolve or we die. That's a choice, right? So there's not this holding outcome to a small frame. We should never build the frame until we know how big the picture is, right? So when traditional religion says what we will teach you is through revelation, that which is written, and through faith, which is belief without proof. I'm not saying faith is a bad thing. I'm not saying revelation is a bad thing. I'm saying the picture's too small. The frame's too small for what's possible for us, in my opinion. And I think that there's a huge difference between the level of freedom and enlightenment that's available to us when we begin to see our place in the universe, our place in God, as God. There's a big change because we go from obedience to written down divine laws, which were written a couple thousand years ago and therefore much smaller than what we can step into now, in my opinion. This is my opinion. Okay. See what's true for you. If you could step into the universal laws, the laws of nature, the laws of how things work, the laws of how we grow, the laws of how we take a quantum leap, the laws of how we learn who we really are as God, not for God. We're not the servant. In my book, are we? Are you a servant? I don't know. That's up to you. I'm just saying the difference in obedience to divine law, however you define that, I would define it as church doctrine, and the obedience and natural laws, the obedience to natural laws, the laws of the universe, the laws that give us life, the laws that make us unique, the laws that make us alive, living with a certain amount of choice, you know. That feels bigger to me. How does it feel to you? Does it feel bigger than the small frame the church builds for us, for our picture of what we need to be obedient to, what laws are governing us? Just an invitation. Do you see yourself as immanent, as a part of God, a God that is immanent, which means part of everything? God is in everything, the whole universe and beyond. There are lots of universes, right? Or is God an independent figure in your life? So I'm just going to run through these again to just refocus on them. Number one. Number two, is the universe God? Or is the universe created by God, and is God outside the universe? Is God the lawgiver? And if we have laws, do we need a lawgiver? And if there was nothing before the Big Bang, do we need a creator? Now, I realize that some of these ideas might feel threatening or wrong for you, and that's fine. I'm just inviting you to consider. The third thing I said was that God is not personal. God is the universe. It's not personal. We're all governed by the same laws. And God versus a God that's personal and gets involved in our everyday life, how we do, what we do, the way we do, right down to what you're wearing, who you love, how you show up in the world. And the fourth one, do you remember? That the universe doesn't necessarily intervene. The universe just goes about its purpose. The universe, as God, just goes about what is, how things work, and there's no intervention if you mess up. Whereas in traditional religion, there's an active intervention that's possible, that's out there, that we're rewarded with or punished by. Think about it. And the fifth one is that is about our knowledge of God, and that we remember who we are, that we remember union, that we remember that God is in everything, including us. And we interact in a way, interact is probably not the right word, it implies division, but we show up in a world and learn and create knowledge in ourselves through reason The laws of the universe are based on reason. They're based on how things work. And understanding that is so crucial. It's not about what is revealed by God, a separate entity. It's not about blind faith, which is not to say it's bad. But I'm just pointing out that if you accepted the invitation to consider that God is the universe, that God is nature, that God is in everything, including us, that it's not limited to that which is revealed in the Bible or the Quran, right? Or all the other sacred texts. That changes it, at least for me. So just open yourself to the possibility that understanding through reason is a natural necessity, not blind obedience to laws that have been laid down in the traditional structure of religion. I like to think that linguistics might help here. Religion from regla, which is Latin, it means the rules, right? So think about it. I just think that allow yourself to open to the possibility that Einstein's God, Spinoza's God, or what we might retrofit with the description pantheism, pan, nature, theism, Godism. That's the Greek root, theism. It's not a distant deity. You know, a deity by definition is that which is invoked in the mystical, that which is invoked, called to us. But do we need to call to us if God is already in us as part of the universe? It's about understanding the very essence of existence itself, that we encourage a view, or at least in my place, that we can encourage a view of spirituality that's rooted in the natural world. I mean, have you ever seen nature make a mistake? Have you ever seen nature be evil? I mean, those are questions. I'm not saying those are the key questions. I'm just, letting it come through. But it's like it's rooted in if God is the natural world, then God and the universe are one. And this offers us the opportunity as individual expressions of the universe to find meaning and connection without relying on strict traditional religious frameworks. So I see it as freeing. I see it as a level of understanding that may or may not be in our lives at this point. Yes, it challenges traditional religion. But a view that emphasizes unity and the interconnectedness of everything, of all things, I think it just inspires me anyway to reflect on being part of the all that is. And I invite you to consider it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Plenty of food for thought. Thank you so much. hmm Well, do you have any question to put before us in terms of any, thing you'd like to have us consider or express, or just allow people to comment or maybe ask anything they want?
I guess I would ask, how would your spiritual path change if what I'm suggesting became part of your path? How would it change? What would you miss or what would you welcome about God as nature?
Yes, Kay.
Well, I love this topic. It resonates so much with what I truly believe. And I I can't give you a definition of how I would imagine the world, but I'm curious as how you would imagine a world where currently we're raised in our Western culture with all of the constraints that our culture puts a lot of constraints on every child we raise. How could you imagine a world where if this belief set of a God of unity and being one with God, what kind of a culture, what kind of a community, what kind of world would that build for you?
It would be cause for celebration in my book. Uh, I think I think it would give us more freedom and enlightenment. I think it would give us a higher level of understanding and therefore of potentiality. I think it would free us from fear because I don't know about you, but one of the things that always pops up when I think about the confines of our some of our belief systems across the planet are fear-based.
Yes.
And I think it would free us. I think we'd be more fun to be with, first of all. And I think that we would have a better understanding of how what we do affects the whole.
Yeah.
And I want to believe that this would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first thought, Kay, when you were asking that question was how much of our lives and our energy and our efforts are directed at the wrong things, following the rules and, begging for forgiveness and judging other people and hating people that are different. And all that energy goes out to doing all these things that are contrary to God. And it just feels like we would all be one. And we would love each other. And like, Marty, I think you said the word potentiality or something. All that energy could be directed into um, peace, love, and freedom. It's a great question, Kay.
I think
And how
this
can
is,
that change? The other thing, I'm sorry to jump in there. The other thing you said, Marty, that really struck me about our world today, I can't find my notes, that when nature breaks down, it's opening up space for something greater. Oh, that just filled my heart with hope that our country is falling apart just to make room for a bigger, better something. I'm going to cling to that, if nothing else, for today. Thank you.
the contradictions of the word God, like we say, infinite love, and but on the other side, judgment and shame and hatred. It's schizophrenic. You cannot reconcile that into the word God. And I've been digging into the Gnostic teachings in the last few months, and I have the feeling they had it right. The God that is in our religion is actually a lesser God. Yes, it's a powerful God that created the universe, that created everything that we experience. But us, as a how do you say, as a born human, we have this reflection from the higher God that is unknowable, actually, undescribable. And for me, when I look at it, I just see God as a field of energy, okay? And thought as an emanation of God over this energy that forms all the realities that is around it. God is just the potential of everything. And thought is what puts potential into the physical form, what we experience. But we always have this spark from God, which is in the Gnostic teaching called monad, uh, within us. So we always bigger than this God that created the universe. Okay, the God that created the universe has control methods to keep us where we are, and I think the Gnostic teachings go very deep in this understanding of everything that you brought up and putting a direction to it. I have to say, when it came to me, it was the understanding of it came to me. I suddenly had a revelation where I must say God is not God that we think we talk about. I think the God that we talk about is a religious God, which is this lesser God. And we cannot win. I mean, this is a trap in reality. It's truly a trap. There is a way to get out of the trap, but we are in a trap.
Yes, Arlene.
Can I just mention that I really have difficulty with the whole God concept, and my difficulty is about, we say God, He, and it leaves out. And then when you talk about nature, and I think about going outside and the trees and the flowers and the worms, there's no he and she. It's all this big energy picture, and it's we and it's us, and it's all inclusive. And I wish we had a different way to address and experience and write about and think about and talk about God, rather than the whole God he thing. And I'm sorry if that's offensive to anybody, because I try not to offend anybody, but that's what goes on in my heart and in my head in a big way, and it leaves out the whole thing of having babies. That was the first thing I thought about, is having a baby. That's men don't have babies. Women, we have babies, and we know what it's like, and we know what it feels like to be pregnant and to have that energy, and to be responsible and connected, and to go outside and do nature and the birds and the bees and the butterflies and the whole thing. And the whole concept of God leaves out more than half of it. Okay, more than half of it. Thank you. That's all I'm going to say. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it.
Well, Arlene, that's the old vision of God. Marty just broke that apart and threw it away and gave us a new understanding. So just let go of that old vision. Easier said than done, huh?
I don't understand what you're asking me to let go of. An old vision of.
The old vision of God, He. God, He does not exist. So it's in your
What
mind
does?
that
Do
you're
we have
hanging on to
another
that.
way? What, God we, God us, God, how do we do that? I don't know
God
how to
as
do that.
nature, God as the universe.
Yeah, what Cheryl said, and you might not have heard, God as the universe.
I have trouble, Arlene, just hearing that word. I'm annoyed, irritated, and I don't want to hear it. And so it's difficult for me to listen to talk that includes that word. But I stayed with it,
I'm sorry, what word are you talking about, Carol?
the word God, period,
Oh,
in any context. It's just so strong in me that it's hard to listen to it. I even thought I might be burned out just by listening to it, but no, I didn't get totally burned out. I'm still not liking it.
Let me jump. Oh, Arlene's trying to talk, but she's muted.
Yeah, Marlene, you're muted if you're trying to communicate to us.
didn't hear what you said.
I just said you're expressing and it looked like you were trying to say something and you were muted, so we didn't know what you were saying. Yeah, so I guess it wasn't. You're just expressing. Okay, Cindy.
Well, of course, I really relate to what Carol's saying because you all know I was 40 years in fundamental evangelical Christianity, cultish, Jesus people, freaks, whatever. So, the word God really doesn't set well with me. And it was kind of funny to me when Marty we were doing the meditation and when I picture the word God, now I see the word GAWD, God. Oh my God. And that kind of helps me deal with all the way from my childhood, which was interesting. Thinking about my mom was religious and was a Presbyterian, and she said things like, never put another book on top of the Bible. You just never put another book. So it was like, oh, that's sort of showed her whole view of honoring God. And then my dad was totally into nature, and he said, I find God out in the mountains and hunting and fishing and the beauty of nature. So I grew up with these two different concepts. And for some reason, I went for the whole Jesus people way of life. I think I needed that certainty. But so now this was great, Marty. I just really found myself responding to what you were saying. And I don't know if I'm not even in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I'm kind of like, I must be in, number 12 or something because I don't, it's really awkward for me. And then maybe it's part of coming out of my fundamentalism that like what Carol said, the word God just bugs me. And I can't seem to, I'm not making the leap into a different way to see God. It's like a whole different way to experience life as a human. I think the fact that we have consciousness is almost an enemy because our consciousness, we go into all these places where I think, like you said a lot, in my opinion, our consciousness makes us think we're greater than we are. We're better than even white people think they're better than other people, and all people think they're better than animals. It's almost as if we can control that nature, and we can't. We
But this
can't.
is all
Like I
ego
was really
driven.
part of the whole. Yes, I thought of that word ego, that we can control anything. And it's almost like those phrases, go with the flow, enter into the stream. And there's something about that as human beings with consciousness, we need to be humbled. That's maybe even part of what's going on in our country. I don't know. I felt like my thoughts today, I felt like I was a pickup sticks box and all the sticks were dumped out and there's all these sticks and I'm trying to pull them out and define them. And but it's fun. But I feel like being humbled as a human, entering into nature, like, well, this is a quick thought, but there's that guy's name was Timothy Treadwell, and he was convinced he could live with grizzly bears. It's up in Alaska, and there's movies about him now, but he lived with grizzly bears. Like he thought they were his people. I don't know, for a long time. I don't know, 8, 10, and he took all these movies of living with grizzly bears, and then at the end, they killed him and ate him. It was like, ugh, you know, we try to take over and have these, you know. So anyway, I'm just all over the place, but this was great. It's really food for thought.
Yeah, those laws of nature. Right. There
Yeah.
is just life and death, and things die, and things are born and created, and things change, and bears like to eat people. So yeah, that's part of it. They like to eat, and it just happens to be people.
And sometimes they're hungry.
So in this discussion, we've deconstructed the religion that our culture is based on. And I think moving forward, we have to imagine and build a life based on universal connectivity. That's just my summing up what I feel from this conversation.
But you see, I mean, at the end of the day, being present is what is one of the most important thing, because being present means that you're increasing your vibration. And if everybody increases the vibration, all these things happen automatically because it just is. You know, if you have low vibration in shame, fear, hatred, and so on, well, that's what you get. If you increase your vibration, you're on a state of love, peace, and so on. Well, guess what? This is what's going to realize. So it's the presence that we give that makes things happen before any action, because even the action can be done out of hate. A good action can be done out of hate because you hate something else. Now suddenly you do something to correct this hate. So you don't win. It's presence. Presence is the key.
Any other final questions or comments?
Well, I just think that my total attitude toward skepticism comes from Santa Claus.
You know, we're talking about the bears and the grizzly bears, and you know, my friend John, his dad made that movie with Dan Haggerty. And Dan Haggerty and this little baby grizzly bear grew up together, and they were best friends, and they played and romped and wrestled, and they didn't have that whole thing about bears are supposed to eat people, so they didn't, you know. And they made this wonderful movie that we've all loved and watched, and it's like a big picture, and it's a total heart picture, and I love it. I think we can have the whole damn thing. That's what I think, you know. I think we can have it all. I hope I can have it all. I want it all.
Well, Marty, thank you. Obviously, this was meaningful and provocative to a lot of people in many ways. So thank you for sharing. That's one of the gifts that we hope for when we invite, ministers to come to just really challenge us in some way as we move in our spiritual path. So thank you so very, very much.
And thank you, Marty, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this time we have another song, and no, that's the topic. Okay. May the road rise up to meet you. This is such tiny print, and I've tried to make it bigger, and I can't get it to be bigger. So I have to get my glasses. Sometimes I have it on the screen. Today it's like this. So, all righty. We'll be muted so you can sing out. Thank you. So
I need to go.
okay. We always make mention that Okay, first of all, we're going to do our namaste greeting. Here again, my tiny print. Okay, so we have the tradition of greeting each other with namaste, which often translates as to I see the God in you. Namaste, 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 namaste. So as we close, I just mentioned that if you want to make a financial contribution, you can do it online at the website, or Cheryl, our wonderful email communicator for our group, sends an email with an address that you can um, send a check to. And we can really, we're a community that's sustained of itself through our service and our participation and our financial gifts. So I just say thank you in all the ways you share by your presence and otherwise.